Hey everyone, Anarch here. And this is the first episode in a new series I'm doing, which I call Liberation in Action. So let me tell you a little bit about the idea of this series. The story of this video series starts a few years back when I made a Twitter thread which was focused around compiling a big list of anarchist, libertarian, socialist, and just generally horizontalist movements and autonomous regions. I reached out to the people who followed me on Twitter and I just asked them to contribute whatever examples they could think of. So I started a Google Doc, and in it I put all of the examples I could think of to start with, but I was shocked within a few hours how many new examples that I had learned about in the process. Not only historical examples, but modern day examples, which I had never heard of beforehand. Since that list was created, I have used it kind of a lot. I mean, first of all, I used it in lots of discussions where people were asking for examples of anarchist or libertarian socialist projects, which included substantial amounts of territory, or which included a lot of people that were taking place in the movement at hand. And it has generally served well in that purpose, and for that reason, a lot of other people have asked for the link numerous times as to kind of serve that same purpose in the discussions they were having. Also, since then, the list has continued to expand. Up until I had talked about it on the stream just the other day, people were still providing me new examples. And so it sort of struck me that this was a really good idea for a video series. What I'm going to do in this first video is I'm just going to summarize what's in this list. But in the future videos, what I'm going to do is I'm going to devote a video each to all of the examples in this list. And they're essentially going to be these sort of 20 to 30 minute videos as best as I'm able. And I'm just going to talk about what the project is, where it came from, what region it's in, and what kind of like ideological and structural convictions that the people have or had, as the case may be, in historical examples. My hope for this series is that it would give people enough examples to recognize that horizontal revolutionary activity is not some pie-in-the-sky dream. It's something that is occurring today and has occurred many times throughout history, and is in fact the liberatory impulse of humanity seeking to free itself from the fetters of hierarchical power. I also hope that in these first videos in the series, since we're going to be talking about modern day examples, that people start to recognize that there are many of these examples in the world around them. This is not just some historical phenomena which has been dead for a very long time. It is in fact something which is active, which is always producing new projects, new autonomies as we speak. And that these people who are struggling in these very real prefigurative movements need our support now. And I'm hoping that the series therefore brings attention to many of these examples that we are coexisting with. However, I will also go over historical examples in the latter part of this list. Many of those are going to be very familiar, ones you've probably heard of, but if you're like me, a lot of them are not going to be familiar. You're going to be surprised to find out throughout history how many examples of horizontal movements or autonomous regions have existed. And of course, I should note the list that is going to be in this video is down below in the description, and I invite y'all to comment below and give me more examples if you can think of any, because I intend to expand this list as much as is conceivably possible. And if you can contribute to it while I am proceeding through the production of these videos, and it gets added to the list in such a way that I can get to it in the timing that I am proceeding through the list, then I may very well do a video over the example that you've given down below in the comments. All I would say is just reminding you that I'm not talking about any old revolt or rebellion. I'm talking about examples where people held the power horizontally together, not examples of states where people gave away their power to representatives, but instead those examples where power was created from the bottom up and it remained within the hands of the people. Also, if you value the work that I'm doing here, I just want to say early in the video that you should go become a patron at my Patreon, which is patreon.com/anarch. That is where I actually make the money that allows me to continue doing this channel and to be able to continue producing videos like these, which are hopefully informational resources that help enrich your understanding of revolutionary activity and which you can spread to others in order to educate those people about that revolutionary activity as well. Anyway, let's get started. Remember that in this video, all I'm really going to be doing is saying the name of the project and the location that it's in, because I imagine that if I just read through this, I'm probably going to have to take a considerable amount of time. So the most you should really expect is an extremely brief summary. The first is Rojava, or as it's often called, AANES, and that is in northeastern Syria, which is a multi-ethnic revolutionary struggle comprising about 2 to 3 million people and based around the principles of social ecology, feminism, and communalism. Next in the list is the Zapatistas in Chiapas, Mexico. This is a project of about 200 to 300,000 people, and it is a movement inspired by indigenous Mayan practices, anarchism, libertarian socialism more broadly, Marxism, and a variety of other tendencies lying there in Mexico. The next is Quicosesola in Venezuela, which is actually a federation of cooperatives which is anti-hierarchical and based in solidarity. This has actually grown to be a very considerable portion of the cooperative sector there in Venezuela and is comprised of some 20,000 workers. The next is FEJUVE in Bolivia. FEJUVE is another confederation, but this time of community councils. FEJUVE is a federation of about 600 community councils, which handle things like public services, construction, and jobs. As of now, it appears to have about 114,000 members and has existed since the 1980s. The next are the autonomous communities in Acapatzingo, Mexico. And these are really interesting because they are actually in the middle of urban areas in Mexico. This is comprised of a large number of council structures which sort of manage the public services of the area and have worked to establish and install a bunch of things like drainage ditches, public health services, and so on. Here I will note that some of these I haven't actually done an extensive amount of research on myself, so I'm just going to be giving kind of the brief summaries that I have gathered as I've done some brief research beforehand. The next one in the list is Maralaneda in Spain. Maralaneda is apparently a sort of communist model village, which has actually better living standards than most people in the region it's in, which is Andalusia. After that, we have another example in Andalusia, Spain, called Puerto Real. Puerto Real is another autonomous municipality in Spain, and this one looks like it has about 45,000 people in it. The next is Spezzano Albanese, which is in Italy. It looks like it's a community of about 6,000 people. The next is Oaxaca in Mexico, which is another very large region, which is essentially an autonomous community, which started with a group called the APPO that started its struggle back in 2006 and has ever since then essentially had an autonomous government, which is at odds with the Mexican regional government of Oaxaca. As of last check, it looks like it has about 28,000 people in it. Yet again, there is another autonomous region in Mexico called Cherán, which went through a series of very similar processes wherein they created an autonomous government which functioned outside of the municipal government's reign. And it still exists to this day and looks like it's comprised of about another 16,000 people. The next is Zomia in Southeast Asia, which is an autonomous region of anarchists which has been there for some significant amount of time. Next is Freetown Christiania in Denmark, which is an autonomous commune of about 1,000 people. Then we have the Twin Oaks community in Virginia, which is another commune of about 100 people. Next, we have the Ganinke in New York, which is actually an autonomous region which has been reclaimed by force by the Mohawks in that region. Lastly on the list of autonomous communities in the modern day, we have Exarchia in Greece. Exarchia is an anarchist region which has been claimed from the government and has not allowed in any agents of the government for quite some time now. It is full of community centers and cooperatives, some of which are actually selling goods from the Zapatistas. So from here, we're going to move into existing movements. Whereas the previous list was all autonomous regions, this list is of movements of people who haven't necessarily achieved any sort of autonomous power, which exist within some society and are moving to try to create a revolutionary or radical movement of transformation. So I'll just say, starting into the rest of this list, which is actually the majority of the list, I'm going to need to move a little bit faster, so you'll forgive me for not giving more in-depth summaries, but also we're going to discuss each of these in a video in the future. So what I'm going to do here as we proceed is I'm just going to read these off one by one. First, we have the IWW, the Community of Squatted Prosphagika in Athens, Greece, the OSL, which is comprised of FARJ, COMPA, OASL, and FL in Brazil, the MST in Brazil, which is sometimes called the Landless Workers Movement, Symbiosis in the United States, comprised of groups you may be somewhat more familiar with, like Cooperation Tulsa or Cooperation Jackson, the Black Rose Federation, which is an specificist federation in the United States, the Sarvodaya Shramadana movement in Sri Lanka, the CIPO-RFM in Oaxaca, the Barcelona Squatters movement in Spain, Abahalali Base Manjolo in South Africa, the Zone to Defend in France, the Bangladesh Anarcho-Syndicalist Federation in Bangladesh, the Chilean Uprising in Chile, No TAV in Italy, the ACT UP movement, the Anarchist Union of Iran and Afghanistan, the Zablaza Anarchist Communist Front in South Africa, the Workers' Solidarity Alliance in the United States, Bandilang Itim in Philippines, Die Plattform in Germany, the FAU in Germany, the Anarchist Federation in France, the Anarchist Federation in Great Britain, the IAF-IFA, Anarchist Communist Group, the Green and Black Cross in the UK, the Anarchist Black Cross, which has chapters all over the place, the Catholic Workers Movement, which was originally in the United States but is now in the UK as well, the Mohawk Warrior Society, and the Mapuche in Chile. That is the current list for existing movements. And with this, we move into the historical part of the document. So here what we have is historical autonomies. And some of these are going to be familiar and some of these are not going to be so familiar, probably like a lot of the rest of the list, but we'll just get started. The first is the C&T FAI in Spain. Then we have the Free Territories of Ukraine in Ukraine. Then we have the Paris Commune in France. Then we have the Stranza Commune in Bulgaria, the Morelos Commune in Mexico, the Soviet Republic of Soldiers and Fortress Builders of Nassar in Estonia, the Guangzhou City Commune in China, the Korean People's Association in Manchuria, the Shanghai People's Commune in China, People's Planning in Kerala, India, the Life and Labor Commune in Moscow/Siberia, the Olympia Commune in Washington in the United States, the Home Commune in Washington, United States, the Haudenosaunee Confederation in pre-colonial North America, St. George's Hill in England, a variety of maroon settlements across the Americas, the Limerick Soviet in Ireland, and the Aperanthos community in Naxos, Greece. Next in the list, we are looking at historical movements. The first in the list are the Russian revolutionary anarchists in Tsarist Russia, the squatting movement of the 80s in Germany, Horizontalidad in Argentina, the Jura Federation in Switzerland, the Japanese anarchists, the Indian anarchists, the Magonista Rebellion in Baja California and Mexico, Patagonia Rebelde in Argentina, the Kronstadt Rebellion in the USSR, APPO in Oaxaca, Symphony Way pavement dwellers in South Africa, the Indignados in Spain, the Gezi Park Commune, the Occupy movement, FRAP in Montreal, the Diggers in England, the Autonomists in Italy, the Boston Anarchists, Bash Back in the United States, the FAI in Italy, the C&T in Spain, and the Moss Lake Uprising in New York. I know I proceeded through the remainder of this list pretty quick, but I think you can see why. There are a lot of things in this list, and you can see why I had the idea to turn this into a video series, right? I could do a video either, 20 to 30 minutes or maybe longer on all of these examples, and they'd probably be very interesting things for us to inspect. However, you can imagine that if I even did like a 1-minute summary of each of these, this video would be well over an hour. So I'm not going to do that here. I hope that just the summary of maybe some of those existing autonomies was enough to whet your appetite for the rest of this video series. And if so, then you should subscribe to my channel, because that is pretty much going to be what I do every single week from here on out for quite a few months to come. I'm just going to keep producing videos on all of the things in this list. Also, if you appreciate the work that's being done on this channel, I'd like to suggest that you go become a patron at my Patreon, which is patreon.com/anarch. And you can become a patron for any amount, $2, $5, $7, $10, or $20. If you pledge any of those amounts, you will get access to the Anarch Discord server, where there's a really great community having all kinds of conversations about world events and theory and praxis and history and all kinds of things. After you join the Patreon, or if you become a YouTube member, just send me a message and I will give you the link to the Discord. But anyway, I think that's it for today. I just want to remind you that if you've got any ideas or questions or comments about the list that I've provided here, you just go down below and leave a comment, and we can have a discourse over what it is you have to say there. But that's it for today's video, everyone. I'll see y'all later.